Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. How y'all doing? What up, Trail Dust? Hey, you're in the voice too. What's up, Ben Toombs, Shane Lalonde, Robert Whitney, Jack Pines, and the rest of you guys shuffling in. I do expect this not to be a full house today. Adam also is off because it is a holiday weekend. I don't think it's a holiday weekend in Australia, so he may have just had a long night at the bar, and no, 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 no. He's on an archaeologist dig site, I'm sure, and he's too busy digging through dinosaur blacksmiths to talk with us. Yeah, that's what it is. It's got to be. Anyway, happy Sunday, and I hope you guys all had a fantastic holiday week. It Thanksgiving was Thursday, Black Friday was Friday, and then I know I spent most of the time in a food coma and nursing a couple food babies. It is almost time for leftovers. Woo-hoo! So, gonna keep rolling with that. But yeah, good morning, good morning. Let's get this rolling. Today we have, like I said, Adam is out today. We have Alexis at the job site and on the phone. And then we have special guest. You know him, you love him. He does questionable things to animals and horses. We have Kevin from Trail Dust Forge. Trail, du- Trail Dust 55.
Morning.
Morning. Let's, I guess, start with the how was your week? And this ought to be fun because it was a holiday and, you know, oh, there's Adam. I guess he got
Oh,
back from the paleontologist's dig a little early. Can you hear us, Adam? Hello? All right. I'm sure he'll be able to figure that out. But yeah. So how was your week?
yeah, I'll go ahead and kick that off. It wasn't too awful bad. I worked on Monday, and then nothing on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday, nothing on Thursday. Thursday, I decided just go ahead and cook a little Thanksgiving meal for at the shack. Got a little 3 pound turkey breast I put in the smoker, and some stuffing and mashed potatoes. That's good enough. I don't need to cook a bunch of stuff if I'm not going to eat anyways. I've almost finished all the leftovers. I've probably got one more sandwich left to go where I just mix up the mashed potatoes, the stuffing, and the turkey and throw it on some bread. Um, I worked my butt off on Friday and then again yesterday, and I'm starting today already. So, going to make a little bit of money this next payday, I hope. Other than that, let's see. Yeah, that's been it. It's been a little bit. The weather's been a little bit non-conducive in getting out to the shop, so I think I gave myself a tunnel playing video games all week.
Right.
But yeah, no, that was my week in a nutshell. Not a whole lot going on, and just kind of sitting around in blah weather and can't afford to go anywhere, so hanging out. Uh, who's next?
Let's hear from Kevin while Adam gets his tech difficulties figured out.
Well, good morning. Um, I've had just a fairly typical week, worked 3 days. Wednesday being the day before a holiday, was able to leave early. And so I'm on old timer hours, that's even earlier yet, and spent what time I could during the weekend um, out in my shop trying to figure out which project to start and not really making the decision. Isn't that always the way?
Right. Right. Exactly. Um, Adam, do you have audio? Can you hear us? Turn your computing machine upside down and shake it one time. Anyway, while we wait for Adam to get that figured out, must have a rough signal out there at the dig site. Anyway, who is this Kevin guy? That's Turtle Dust. My week, and again, Adam, if you go ahead and feel free to say hello when you get it figured out. My week, again, just like Alexis, slow work week. I worked Monday, Tuesday, and like an hour or two on Wednesday. Got a job finished up, or the first part of a job finished up, and let me see. I'm gonna have to go back there to drop some lights once they finish the ceiling. But other than that, it was a big job done. And yeah, that was pretty much finished up. I went over there on Wednesday to flip a couple breakers so that the workers there could have some lights. Like, I can work in the dark, why can't you? But yeah, so did that. Then it was cleaning up the house and getting things ready and helping where I could get things going for Thanksgiving. On Thursday we had it was my cousins came over. My brother Josh had, his wife had COVID or COVID-like symptoms and didn't, nobody wanted to come over for that. But my brother and his wife, Zach, they came by and had a blast and basically their first Thanksgiving down here in the South. And, yeah, kind of hung out, ate bunches of food, and watched Nightmare Before Christmas and, to kick off the holiday seasons. And then kind of hung out in my room and just played some games. And what was it? Then Friday, I worked like a madman on computer stuff. And Saturday, and then I went over to Zach's house, and then Saturday I'm like, all right, I can come over and hang out, but I'm going to be working. And I was working on stuff, networking and doing this and that and the other thing. And then I said, screw it, I'm off on Saturday, and played games all day with my family, with, Big Zach, Little Zach, Luke, Lindsay, Steve. It's like we played, got some new games and played those. Pummel Party, which is like Mario Party, if any of you played Mario Party, but with a lot of blood. Played that, then the duck game, and tried out Sons of the Forest. That's a freaky game. There's a 3-legged woman in it. But yeah, there's a fun weekend so far. And then the rain comes in today, and it's like I'm sitting here waking up and drinking my coffee, which I still have, and it's like I'm just hearing, and I open the windows, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of water coming down. But yeah, so, and that brings me to now. I do have some more work to do after I get off here today. So fingers crossed that all this work that I do pays off, because I'm hurting myself for this. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my week in a nutshell. Busy doing Robert Lonis 3-legged. Well, okay, let me more specify. A 3-legged and 3-armed woman is in the game. Like, yeah, Sons of the Forest. It's a horror survival game. It's pretty cool so far. But yeah, but yeah, so just a crazy fun week. And that's all I got for that. So that was the show. Thank you. No, today
It's been fun.
it's been fun. Bye. See, Turtle Dust, I told you it'd be quick and painless. So no, today's topic, when we're talking about getting together with family, brings in connections as a topic, and with that, we're talking about the isotopic connections. I did some deep dives into how molecular bonds are formed between isotopes and their elements, and it's actually pretty interesting. There's the isotopes have like a mind of their own, and they have like these little claw things that when an isotope finds an element that it finds attractive, it literally grips onto it and doesn't let go, and it becomes like an innate part of the element. And I have proof of that somewhere, but I'd like to have Alexis tell me whether or not I am right or wrong.
Yeah, you're actually pretty close. I mean, it's kind of like one of those claw machines, only better. I mean, just kind of reaches out there, grabs a hold, and just reels it right in.
All right. That we can't go on with that. I only wanted to do isotopes because I know that Kevin gets a little excited about isotopes. So, but no, connections. We are talking forged connections, forged in the blacksmithing world, we got like forge welds, electrical welds, the gas welding, and which is basically a forge weld. Collars, rivets, and other types. I think staples. I think the way Kevin does things is he takes like a heavy duty staple gun and just goes and it combines the anyway. So
You have to
something
wear ear protection with that.
right. How cool of a machine would that be? Like a staple for metal, like an actual like take a staple and go and it goes through the metal. So something I've known for a while, and something that like really kind of just literally clicked today is shows how bad I am at paying attention. Turtle dust. Kevin actually builds railings. Does railings and or has done railings or and that involves a whole sort of subtopic that we've talked about here and there with Roy and with us, about the different techniques used with blacksmithing, and how each specific technique, each specific piece, element, isotopes, yeah, the connections kind of are like the isotopes for each of the, oh yeah, scientific tie-in for the win. Each individual technique and an element of a piece is in and of itself just that, an element or a technique. And it's the connections that actually make the project a project. So we're talking, ways to connect things, and ways, the same pieces can make several different styles and types of projects. Now I've actually I've done forge welding, I've done rivets. I mean, obviously, but the one thing I haven't done yet, and it's not for a lack of, it's not for a lack of interest. It's not for a lack of anything other than, I literally just haven't found a project that has needed it yet. I haven't done hot collars yet, and I know it was almost a year ago now. Turtle Dust has sent me these half round bars that are really cool, and it's like I've only got a stack of them about yay thick, so I want to save them for a project that kind of they would be able to show them off, So hot collars, they're mysterious because they have math, and apparently, talking to Kevin, professionals use them to hide electrical welds. Why don't you tell us about that there, Kevin?
Well, I'd have to meet a professional to find out, I guess. um, we have. I started making railings in 1971. I was 15 at the time, and so I've had a chance to do different ways, with fancy scrolls and some real half-ass scrolls, if you will.
Right.
And um, predominantly, these scrolls would be added to the rails by welding. When I started, of course, it was stick welding, and I used to be pretty good at that. And since then, it tends to be MIG welding, wire feed, if you will. And usually, if you get a good weld, you can clean it up with a grinder, and that's fine enough. But sometimes, just to add that little bit of detail, you can put a collar on to kind of cover over the welded area, so it looks like a really old-fashioned rail.
Right.
And for that, depending on the stock you use for the collar and the size and particular shape of the picket and the scrolls, you'd have to determine how long a piece you need for the collar. Typically, if you haven't done that for a bit, so it's not right on the tip of my
I actually have
brain.
the Blacksmiths cookbook. The Blacksmiths cookbook actually has a section in here that has the math required for collars, and I actually just spun over to it. It's the frosting the cake hot collars section. All right, let me see if this does not work. Okay, that does not. That's just a white sheet of paper. Where is it? Okay, first the collar length. This is the measurement around the pieces to be collared, plus 2.5 times the thickness of the collar material. This is the cut length before beveling the ends. 3/16 stock is best for most collars, so add 5/32 to the length. Bevel both ends on the opposite sides, and the bevel length is 2 times the collar thickness, or 3/8 long. After beveling, allow to cool, then find center and mark off 1/2 the desired width of the collar on one side of the center. Place the long end down in the vise, the short end up, and make the first bend to 90 degrees. If you put the short end down and bend the long end, you will lose material towards the center, and the collar will not come out with even ends. I make the first bend in a heavy break. Okay, does that sound good so far?
Yes, it does.
All right. To make the second bend, I have a series of die blocks 2-inch wide with thicknesses from 1/2 inch to 1.5 inch by 16ths. These blocks are built up to the correct thickness, ground off so that they have sharp edges and are a few thousandths under size, then case hardened with royal compound. Blocks so treated will hold their edge for a long time. The 2-inch width allows the collar to be placed in the vise without the first bend hitting the vise jaws below. Place the collar in position cold, drive the material into with a set hammer tight. If the collar springs open a bit, heat the lower corner and with large tongs, squeeze it at the ends to make the collar fit tight at the bottom. Then heat about halfway down the collar up to the bevel to a white heat. Fold over quickly with sliding blows until the crosspeen. Repeat on the other half. This controlled heat results in the tightest possible collar. It allows me to put collars on long railings or large gates where it would be impossible to heat the collars in the forge, get them in place, and make them tight, especially when working alone. Yeah. And then it's got the image. And again, let me see, because this is actually, this explains everything. And I'll have to adjust the what's in the hoodie. Darken it up a little bit. So, let me see let me know if you guys can see that all right there.
There you go. We can see it.
Is that clear enough? I know it's more difficult to read, but it's just the font that they used. You know? Yeah. Pretty freaking neat. So I'm assuming this first bend here, you get the first bend, right? Boom.
Yes.
And then you take a block and you put it in the vise, squeeze it, and then hammer it over. You know, to make a staple, essentially. All right. Now I'm gonna be all dark. That's fine, because if I'm dark and I show more of this book, so yeah, hot collars is something that I've really wanted to try, and I kind of want to figure out a way to make a jig for hot collaring with those round half rounds, so that I don't mar the surface when I'm working on them. You know, it's just, I love those half rounds. Less glare from your head that way. All right, Bill. Fine. Yeah. Adam, I see you have yourself muted. Can you hear us now? I'll take that as a no. Poor Adam. But yeah, so my question with the railings that you do, I know you pre-weld them, and that kind of makes sense, from a modern standpoint. Like, why struggle when you don't have to? But like, I'm assuming you guys use like an oxyacetylene torch to heat the collars. You like have the railing laid out, and then you go around with like partially made collars. Because I mean, if you're doing a railing, you know that your exact thicknesses everywhere you're going to use them. Correct?
Yeah, typically, when we do that sort of thing, it's sort of a standard size of getting the standard size of scroll. And the only difference would be if there's a scroll on one side of the picket or on both sides.
Right. So I'm assuming you like pre-make a whole bunch of get them to the point where you just got to slip them on, heat them, and fold them over, right? You make a whole bunch of them and have them in different buckets, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
with different labels for sizes. You see that for production work, that just screams smart. If you know you're going to be working with the same thicknesses each time, go in, spend a day making a couple hundred collars, so that when you need one, they're right there. I mean, you could even take and drop them in a vibratory sander and get them all cleaned off, and have them just kind of ready to go. So
That would be in a production type situation. We don't use them that much because that adds expense to the rails, and a lot of the residential rails we do or have done, um, people didn't want that much detail. They wanted
right,
that much less money.
yeah, it's they kind of don't. Yeah, I run across that a lot where it's like they'll have the grand idea of what like this one lady at the flea market, she wanted a standing brazier. I almost said brazier. She wanted a standing brazier, and it's like, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. What size are you talking about? And she's like, oh, about, I want it to be on a post and have the fire up about 4 to 5 foot, and I want the post to be freestanding so that I can move it around my yard and be able to hold about 4 logs for the fire. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking that's a lot of steel, and that's kind of a bit of weight. So I'm like, all right, I'm thinking like a 3/4 inch bar for the base and then I would do a tenon on the base and do 4 legs coming off of it. And she's like, yeah, and if you could scroll the ends and put little round nubs on so that it like kind of, I can wiggle it into the ground a bit. And I'm like, okay. And then she's like, all right. I'm like, I can do, a simple, 4 or 6, thing of what is it called, bars for the brazier, and do just simple bent ends at the top. And she's like, oh, if you could do a scroll, and if you could do this, and if you could do like 4 bands so that it's a nice mesh cage, and I like it to be traditionally riveted. I don't want any welding on it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm sitting here judging in my head how much time and material and how many times I'm going to screw it up and have to redo it. And I'm like, I gave her a quote. And she's like, yeah, I can't pay that. I can buy this thing from, I'm like, but I stopped her. I'm like, well, I mean, this is what it costs to have something custom hand forged, like it's not, the more you add, the more it's going to be. And because each of these techniques and each of these connections takes time. And if I get all the way through it and something screws up that last one and it screws up the whole project, I've got to restart, and it's like, but I see Adam has video. Does he have audio? We lost video. We have video.
I do have.
And
I do have
there,
audio.
all right. Yeah.
Oh my golly, that has been an epic. I started trying to get this thing working at 11 o'clock. It is nearly 1 o'clock here. The last 2 hours I have been trying to get this thing working. I turned on my computer, and then I had computer updates, and then I got on, and my phone is dead, and it's just been a it's been comedy and absolute comedy of errors. I couldn't get it to work, and I jumped on. It was like, I thought I had it working because in my Discord settings I could hear everything through my headphones going ding and all that type of stuff. And I jump on, and I could see on the Discord for us when when someone was talking, it flashes green, and I could see that I was flashing green, and everyone else was flashing green when they were talking, but I couldn't hear anything, and I was like, "Oh no!" And if I jump on the YouTube, it's 15 seconds behind, so I get no cues on what I'm actually.
Right.
And it was like I can't do like that wouldn't work for me to actually talk. So it was like I've got to get this working. So yeah, I've been scrambling since the start of the show trying to actually get this working, and finally it's worked. Oh my golly. Anyway, how are we all today? I have absolutely no idea what's going on. They're talking about connections, I presume welding, and
Welding, hot collar rivets, how you connect metal. This idea is sponsored and brought to you by Kevin's Horses. Kevin's Horses told him to do this episode.
Oh, fair enough.
And we got to listen to them.
Yeah.
Yep. That is not the strangest thing I've heard this week. So absolutely. Oh, I've had a week. So yeah, how is everyone? Now I can actually finally say something. You won't be able to shut me up now.
I am fantastic, and feel free to let us know how your week was. I am looking at this Blacksmiths cookbook, and I tell you, they put this, they rename everything in this thing to be like a recipe, and it's like, but like they don't have like the hot collars is in a chapter called Frosting the Cake. Okay, so where is rivets? But anyway, tell us, how was your week? You say it was a hell of a week, so tell us how your week was, please.
Unfortunately, there's certain parts of my week that I can't speak about simply because
It's because the archaeologist told you not to, right?
No, not the archaeologist. I've just had some personal stuff going on. I have a friend staying with me, simply because of some external.
Well, you don't have. That wasn't prying for information. If it's you can't talk about it.
Yeah. No, I've got a friend staying with me, so unfortunately, I've had to help out a friend. They've been put into a situation where, basically, I've been into the forge once this week to straighten coil spring to make some dig chisels, and that's pretty much the only time I've been able to get out to the workshop this week. I did have another chance a little bit earlier in the week, but it was ridiculously hot here. It has been really, really hot. And I also that day just my brain wouldn't kick into gear when it come to like I was dropping stuff and tripping over myself. I was like, no, I'm not going to the forge today because that's unsafe for me to do so.
Right.
And then the day I did go into the forge, I ended up straightening 3 pieces of coil spring, even though I only needed 2 because one was too short. So and I didn't even finish what I was doing. So it was kind of like just I've had one. I've had a week. It's been a week. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. But I actually do, courtesy of Yarmouth, I actually also have a copy of the Blacksmiths cookbook. It is good. I
It's a
agree.
good book. It's just
Yeah, it's hard to
it's
find everything.
it's laid out weird.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like once you understand where the mindset of the author is in like it's like it's really neat because it's almost as if it's one of my insane rambling analogies put into book
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like I
Well,
go, go ahead.
if it's hard to find stuff, it sounds like maybe somebody whose wheelhouse that falls under should kind of like reorganize it and
It's under copyright.
oh
Otherwise, I would. But yes, no, unfortunately not. But yeah, no. There. Suffice to say, there will be there's in the new book coming up. There's going to be stuff on it on it will be organized. But yeah, another there's yeah, I do like it. But one thing you haven't I have been trying to listen to the show in the background on the YouTubes whilst I've been trying to get my Discord up and running. One thing we haven't talked about, which I actually come across a young fella that does blacksmithing in my area. He's been at the local markets trying to sell some of his wares. He goes more into knife making, but he does do a little bit of general blacksmithing. Is twisting.
I love
Now,
twists.
but what I mean by twisting is like particularly for handles and stuff like that. But it's also a little bit prevalent in in Baroque ironwork and stuff like that. When you've made a vine and you use the end of the vine, the tail of the vine twisted around the main part of the bar to actually attach the piece
Right.
to the other piece. So that's another way, very just rather than collaring or riveting, just a very
It's
simple
it's
twist.
like a modified hot collar.
Yeah, just coiling. Yeah,
You know.
that's another way. That's another very simple way to attach two pieces together, apart from welding and stuff like that. But I also heard your little story about that lady that tried to order a brazier. Um, yeah,
Oh,
I
she
pronounce it brazier.
brazier. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
you also say aluminium.
well, that's true. But whenever anyone comes up to me and says, "Oh, I don't want an electro welded, I want a traditional," I can't help myself as everyone. I'm one of those but actually people because electro welding is traditional blacksmithing.
Yeah.
I literally have proof that in the late 1800s when electro welding was invented, it was and oxyacetylene was invented. It was first adopted and widely used by blacksmiths. So
Yep.
it is electro welding is a traditional method for a blacksmith.
Yep.
And I don't care what anyone says, and I'll go nah to you if you do if you disagree with me because I have sources.
All right. So we don't feel so bad using it, right, Mr. Brunel?
That's right.
But yeah.
We
Uh-huh.
Can I answer a question from the chat here?
Yes, you can.
A little bit ago, Robert Lonis asked what's the most common stock used in railings. And before that goes too far into the back of my mind, I thought I'd do what I can. Where I work now, my current day job, I don't do a lot of residential type stuff. It's mostly big things. We did railings for the most interesting ones to me. We did railings for the top trail at the Minnesota Zoo. And just about all the stock from that was half by 3/4 flat stock, which is where I got a lot of scrap from that they let me take home. So we can talk about that some other time. But other than that, most of the rails we do are pipe rails. So it'd be 1.25 pipe or 1.5 pipe. And some of that will have smaller pipe as intermediate lines in there. And sometimes there's 1/2 inch round pickets, that sort of thing. Residential rails, the most common that I've done over the decades has been 1 inch square for posts, sometimes solid. Typically, it'd be tubing. 1/2 inch square solid for pickets with a molded rail cap on top, and then a 1 inch by 1/2 inch channel on the bottom to take the bottom of the picket. So that's most common from what I've done. So hopefully that'll answer Robert's question.
What is a balustrade?
Twice the length of the middle of the end.
What now?
It's a post.
It's a post. Okay.
Sorry, I thought you said what's a ball of string?
No, balustrade. Balustrade. You freaking cat.
It's
like ball of
a
yarn.
more expensive post.
Okay, so it's an elaborate
More
post where the rest of the railing connects to it.
Yes.
Okay, I was using
You
that wrong.
pronounce it funny.
You pronounce things funny.
See, I've always heard it as a balustrade.
To be fair.
No, but that's very interesting there, Kevin. Thank you for that information. That actually, see, that information will be filed away in the back of my mind because I know at some stage in the future, someone will say, "Can you make me, a railing?" So that will be like, okay. It'll be in the back there. I'll go, I know those measurements. What are they? And I'll think about it, and that will come up.
Right.
A little bit less common for the top would be where there'd be like a channel, either just a 1.5 inch wide channel on top, or it'd be a channel that's upside down with a flat bar on top, and then the pickets which is punched for the pickets to fit through, and that way the welds are hidden.
Right.
Something else to file away, make it a little more confusing for you.
Mm-hmm. That's all right.
What is the most under, or how to phrase this? I have the question in the ether of my brain. What is the most? I can't even word correct today.
Words
hidden.
are hard.
Words are hard. Brain is quiet today. It worked overdrive this past week. I seriously think I damaged some synapses with how hard I was thinking this week. Synapses.
Your brain isotopes.
My brain
All
isotopes.
three.
Yeah, my brain isotopes. The little isotopic claw detached. Underrated, yes. Underrated and unknown little tidbit secret of constructing a railing set. Little like a little aha thing that it's like most people don't think about. That is actually either extremely complex or easier than people think. Because it's like I tried to do a railing once, and it's like I was just my brain started hurting thinking of the math on it. Ben, thank you. You actually, helped. So yeah.
I really don't know. I started doing these so long ago that I don't really have to think about it.
Well, now you do.
Rats, you made me think. The rail match the same pitch going down the steps, so it's the same height, top to bottom. I've seen rails that are put on stairs that they're not really made for, so that when you start, your hand is at hip height, holding on to it, and when you get down, it's either way up or way down. So
You
it,
feel
it
like a
really
kid.
should match same height. Yes.
Okay.
Um, there is a building code. Currently, the building code for height of a rail or stairway rail is 34 to 38 inches high. You've got a pretty good range of height. Um, the odds of missing that are kind of slim. We usually do about 36 just so that there's a lot of leeway there and something weird appear.
All right.
And, anchoring the rail is important so it doesn't wobble or anything of that sort, so it doesn't work loose.
You just use wood glue to glue it down. So I mean that's fine, right?
Well, it's Elmer's wood glue. Other wood
Okay.
glues won't work.
Okay.
Yeah, we depending on what the situation is, if we'll use like lag bolts, for instance, to fasten it down into wood with a plate on the bottom of the rail, fasten it down. If we're doing into concrete, my preferred method is to drill into the concrete and set the post down in there and then cement it in. There's just a setting cement that's made for that sort of thing.
Okay.
Actual mortar or something will shrink as it cures, whereas this cement actually
Expands
a little tight.
So there's a curveball for you. What would you do on a on a stairway, or what are they called? A stair, steps, whatever, that has a varying degree of pitches throughout it. Like where, as you're walking up, like one step is like 6 inches up, the next step is 2 inches up, the next step is 4 inches up, and and like literally it's like just random pitch as it goes up.
Can't do that. That would mess somebody up. I mean, like I could go in or
See, that particular situation involves a lot of cursing.
Okay.
But on that note, you generally find that if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in houses and buildings that are pre-code. So, for example, something built in 1850s might actually have steps that aren't all equal. And they're not going to be as extreme as one's 4 inches, one's 2 inches. They're not going to be that extreme, but they will generally have varying tread heights. And that said, you will generally find that the overall, even though each tread might have a different height, that the overall angle of the staircase will be X amount. So I would presume, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, you work on the overall angle of the staircase as opposed to the individual tread height.
Yeah, if it's a stair that you got 5 or 6 steps that are a certain pitch, and then the next steps are a different pitch, then you might change the pitch midway. Otherwise, if it varies the entire way, try to strike a happy medium, and that's where the 34 to 38 inch height.
Yeah, here I am trying to design a staircase that'll mess people up when most people mess up on that phantom stair anyway. Like they'll get to the top of the stairs, and for some psychological reason, it happens to almost everybody multiple times throughout their life. They think there's one more step, or they'll get to the bottom and then misstep that. Like it is just insane how psychologically everybody missteps staircases, and here I am
and
trying
by the
to
way,
like
on a historical aspect with that, those types of staircases already exist there, Yamas, and they exist usually in European castles. particularly in like their bastions or their in their towers, because they were designed to actually trip up any invaders. The stairs would be uneven. People that lived there would actually know the stairs were uneven, and over the lifetime of living there or whatnot, they would get used to the stairs. Whereas an invader wouldn't actually be used to the stairs, and they were designed literally for that reason, to trip them up as they were trying to attack up the stairs. It's also the reason why they would turn most of those spiral staircases. Is actually also the reason why commonly spiral staircases turn to the right, as opposed to turning to the left, because your most average people's sword arm is their right, and it's really hard to fight around a corner with your side arm when it turns to the right, whereas a defender fighting down the staircase would have their right arm free and be able to swing around the bend. And that's the reason why traditionally staircases spiral to the right.
Well,
Going up.
shit. I came in here to entertain and make jokes, and here I am learning something.
Well, yeah.
What was that, Alexis?
That's why I'm a valuable invader, because I'm left-handed.
Mm-hmm. But on that note, bring it back to connections, and Kevin said something very, very interesting that most people don't consider to be a traditional connection either, is bolts and screws. Bolts and screws prior to the early 1900s, actually technically just prior to the First World War, bolts and screws were generally made by the local blacksmith. They had screw plates, and in order to manufacture bolts and screws. So bolts and screws are actually a legitimate and traditional way of joining two pieces of metal or metal to timber. It's a very traditional way, and most carriages, particularly cartwrights and wheelwrights, use bolts, and bolts were also used to connect, particularly for larger tires, particularly in the post-hot fitting era, so probably mid-1800s onwards, where wagon tires were fitted cold to wagon wheels. Bolts were actually often used to connect the iron tires to wagon wheels. So they were countersunk bolts and whatnot. So that's another way that is a very traditional method of joining two pieces of steel or two pieces of material together.
Bolts, yeah.
Bolts.
So I'm assuming not traditional is such a misnomer with blacksmithing, but old school screws before machining and all that stuff were, you say, screw or bolt plates, or what the word, the phrasing that you used, screw plates. Did they basically have threads in a plate,
yep,
and then take a hot bar of steel and twist it in to tap it?
Yep. So pre 1870s, they were exactly like that. It was just like what you were saying. It was a piece of bar. You would clamp it and put these screw plates. They were early tap and dies. The
Early
easiest way
tap
to
and
put
dies.
they were early versions of tap and dies. And then later on, they became and there's actually methods of manufacture. There are instructions that I have floating around of how to make them yourself, and how to harden and temper them. They were actually made out of hardened and tempered steel. And then later on, as it does with mass production, they became cheaper and more convenient to buy what were called screw plate sets, which eventually evolved into our modern day tap and die sets. Yep.
That kind of reminded me. You were saying that traditional is kind of a hairy subject when it comes to blacksmithing. That conversation we had with Eduardo, he's talking about rolling around down in Mexico, and he sees a shop sign that says, in Spanish, traditional blacksmith, and it's got the anvil on the side of the sign. And he goes in to check it out, and it's just like a modern welding shop, and all they have is MIG welders in there.
Right.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Wait a minute! I thought you said this was a traditional blacksmith shop." He's like, "It is. We have a stick welder in the corner. We don't ever use it though."
And yeah, like Eduardo said, it is 100% true. And okay, so I'm going to go through a list of tools that was essential for an up-to-date blacksmith shop in the 1890s. Okay, so of course you got your anvil, your forge, your hammers and tongs, um, your
Nice.
what's it called? Yeah, of course your vise. Then you've got your drill press. Okay, a power hammer. Generally a motor of some description to run the belts for the power hammer and all that type of thing. A bandsaw for your woodworking and all that type of thing. A tenoning machine for making tenons for the wheels and stuff like that. Electricity, electric lights, and of course good natural lighting, because natural lighting was also considered a tool. The It's a cold shrinking machine, so cold type for wagon tires, cold shrinking machine. A oxyacetylene machine for making, for some, particularly back then, some blacksmiths actually made their own acetylene and bought oxygen, but oxyacetylene machine for welding. City shops, so those that were, in large cities would generally have an electro welder, right? And then particularly as we started moving into the early 19th century, around the advent of cars, you would have a pneumatic tire machine and an air compressor. You would also have a petrol or gas bowser, and oils and accessories for motor cars.
Hold on. Pause. I gotta do a minor correction of very common correction. The 19th century was the 1800s to the 1900 or to the 1899. The 20th century was 1900 to 1999 because I was graduating class first for the 21st. And that was in the 2000s.
Yep, sorry, that was a mistake of mine, and yeah, I should have. Yeah,
and I had to jump on that corrections.
Yeah.
The late 1900s and the early 20th century.
Yes. So the 1890s, right, or the late 18th century, the 1900s, which is the 20th century, the early 1900s, 20th. So yeah, so these were all tools on the almost up-to-date shop, right? And they're all traditional blacksmith tools, including technically the gas pump out the front in order to give gas to motorists. So even an air compressor is technically a traditional blacksmith machine. And of course I forget the most important thing. Grinders, being a grindstone, electric bench grinder, because they had emery wheels attached, and then of course later on, particularly as portable power tools became a thing, an angle grinder.
Yeah.
So these are
point being, your shop may be like, not you, Adam, but a shop that you find in modern day times is still considered or can be considered a traditional blacksmith shop. As a matter of fact, a traditional blacksmith shop may even be more kitted out than your modern hobby, blacksmith shop would be. And to tie it all in, the way you can get your hobby blacksmith shop kitted out to be, all the accoutrement and all that stuff is through connections, who you know and who you can help you find things.
The, be- the best way to think about it, and this is something that always is in my head, right? Particularly regarding connections, and this really does tie it in, right? When you think of shipbuilding, or for example, the Empire State Building was built, in the early 20th century, right? The early 1900s. Okay, when you have a think, and a lot of it was riveted together, a lot of the iron beams and stuff like that, and so that was done by blacksmiths, wasn't it? Riveting together, right? And that's, you have a portable rivet forge. They would heat it up, they would throw it to each other in tongs, they would catch it, and there's demonstrations of it now at some events around the world. They would put it in they'd use tongs to put it in the beam, that would join the beams together, and then they would use what to actually head it?
Hammers.
They would, or particularly later on, they would use big pneumatic riveting machines. They'd hold, one on the other. They'd have a header on one side, and the other one would come with an air hammer and go, and air hammer the other side down to
Had a
form
cupping
rivet.
die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was nice and quick, and it took one man as opposed to two. One man using the pneumatic riveting, basically with a jackhammer with a riveting guy.
Yeah.
So that's quote unquote traditional, is it not?
Well, Roy is telling you you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Hey Roy, how you doing? But yeah, so I mean, also Roy, if you have a moment to hop in the Discord after the show, Impractical Blacksmiths have a quick question for you. So yeah, we have an idea and we want to run it by you. But with that, yeah, so connections, forge welding, arc welding, all those electrical weldings. We've got hot collars, we've got rivets, we've got twists, like we had discussed earlier. And yeah, what's up, Matthew?
On the subject of cheating, can I quickly
Who's
discuss
cheating?
one more thing? Sorry, on the subject of connections.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm thinking ahead of myself. I think on the subject of connections, can I discuss one more thing?
No, I mean, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about cheating in welding. Okay.
Oh, in welding. Okay.
Yes. Right. Cheating in fire welding. Okay. Specifically in forge welding. There is nothing wrong with using electro welds to tack together something, to put it into the forge, to heat it up, to then fire weld it together. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a effective cheats method. Because you think it was done? It was absolutely done. It was because rather than trying to bring it out separately, and if you had something that was already tacked together, it is more likely to get welded together, is it not? So for those people that are out there struggling to pull two pieces out of a forge and get them welded together, right? I do recommend learning how to do that because it's a very important skill. But there is no problem with, tacking something together to get it to hold together whilst you put it in the forge so you can get it up to forge welding temperature and then bring it out to the anvil and welding it together. I don't recommend, like I said, I recommend learning how to do it without as well. Man, you still need to prepare your welds and do the right scarves and whatnot. But if you're having trouble getting a weld, it is a really handy little trick. Couple of tack welds, get it hold together, stick it in, bring it out, weld it together. Nice little handy cheat for you.
Oh yeah, we've all done it. But with that, I'd like to go ahead and call it there. Unfortunately, I'm unable to go too long after my Sunday shows these days. And to answer Matthew's question about will there be a live stream tonight, likely not. It's just too many factors keeping me from getting out there. It is pouring rain right now, and I'll check the weather, and that's likely going to continue on and off throughout the day. In addition to that, it's like I still have to. I've got we're waiting on a one more cabinet to get these cabinets out of the way, and then once the cabinets are out of the way from the walkway, then I can move the generators back to where basically this cabinet set took up like all the space, and everything that was in there is just in the way. It's like I went back there to grab it took me like 20 minutes to climb over everything just to go back there and get a cord to bring to my brother's yesterday. But yeah, so probably not tonight. And yeah, so with that, we'll move on to our final thoughts on the show. It's been kind of a all over the place show, talking about traditional techniques, and then electrical welding and stair rails and all of that about connections, because it's all connected. Dun, dun, dun. So
Hey, I'll on that, since I've got a whole convoy of loads coming in right now, and in about 10 minutes I'm going to be really busy.
yeah,
So there are lots of different ways of making connections. We discussed a few of them today, kind of focusing on like hot collars and touching on rivets. And if you're going to do some forge welding, it does help to put in a little bit of a tack weld there and then grind that off after the fact. But the most important connections are the ones you forge with your community. You know what I mean? The people you know, the people you can contact. Hey, I've got a question. Oh, I know somebody that might know that, and so that's something we didn't really talk about, and something I think is really important is it's interpersonal connection. So people are the most valuable resource that you can come across.
Yep.
And that's what I have for connections. So I will see you guys next week, hopefully on camera, live and in person. But if not, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You get back to work. All right. The Turtle Dust, did you have any final thoughts on connections or railings, or why Roy should hop in the chat after this?
Well, I did have some final thoughts, but Alexis stole them.
I know, right?
Yeah, there are some connections that we didn't talk about, like wedges and wire wrap and that sort of thing, and that can come at another time. But it is the love of the craft, the love of the process, the love of the tools that connect us together, and forge some friends here that I have not yet met, but I consider them dear friends. So that's all I have to say.
Right. All right. And Mr. Speargrass, what do you have to say for yourself?
I love how important blacksmithing is to communication. Like forging friendships. People use a lot of blacksmith terminology without even realizing, and just how interconnected our beloved trade and hobby is with, particularly English, is go back to connections there. How intertwined it is with the English language, and in building and making things from nothing. That's interesting to me. But yeah, whenever I hear a phrase that is blacksmith related, it always kind of perks my ears. Even if I have nothing to do with blacksmithing, I know that phrase is blacksmithing related. It's always interesting.
Like, oh, you're so busy, you just got too many irons in the fire. Hey, strike while the iron's hot.
Yep, that's it. It's it.
Or you hit the nail on the head.
Yep. Or something like innocuous, like forging connections.
Don't lose your temper.
So, that's right. So thank you very much everyone for joining us. Don't forget you can find Yamas on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Island Metal Forge. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can find me at Speedgrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Minute of the Week, or any other topic, you can leave it under the hashtag Middle of the Week in the YouTube chat in our Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com. If you found us on Spotify, Amazon, or Google Podcasts, we generally upload every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time, but check that against your local time, and that's at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening on the podcast, don't forget to leave us a rating. If you're listening to us later on YouTube, don't forget to drop a comment and tell us what you think. We do always appreciate that, and we do appreciate your support. And on that note, finally, let's head over to give it back to you, Yames, for your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are empty head, no brain. No. No matter how busy you are, you really need to find time to get out to the shop. I really do need to get out there again and just kind of reconnect with myself. It's been hectic up in here. But yeah, it's take advantage of that therapy. We all have a heavy metal therapy in the garage or in the shop or out in the backyard. Take advantage of it, especially with the holiday seasons and that whole seasonal depression syndrome stuff coming up. Y'all take care of yourselves, and just a big thank you to everybody who makes this show possible, fun, and so y'all are wonderful. Have a great day, and we will see you next time. Alrighty, I will talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.